All right, welcome. Tonight we are going to do Kaiju tier list. This will be Godzilla and Gamera movies or shows. I've watched a couple shows with them. Uh, I've seen other movies with Kaiju. I've seen like Pacific Rim, but I honestly don't remember each one's name or specifically like what their thing. I remember like a knife head, maybe leatherneck thing, but I don't know much about them. So I didn't include them in here. And then there was like Cloverfield I've seen, but I didn't include that. So this is going to be based off of Godzilla, which is like Toho, and then Gamera, which is, what does the Daisei, the other Japanese film company. So a lot of Godzilla movies, a lot of Gamera movies. To give some historical context, so I, like most people growing up, knew who Godzilla was. Um, I hadn't seen many Godzilla movies specifically. I'd probably seen snippets of some. Most of the ones that I was exposed to would have been not the original, so not the original black and white, but probably some of the follow ups to that. Mothra, I knew growing up, the twins and Mothra. My dad actually knew the movies, like some of the movies, so that was probably where I had been exposed to it. And then my brother, who's 10 years older than me, uh, had seen some of it. So like I knew of it, but I hadn't seen really like original Godzilla, which was more the mean Godzilla. I'd seen the nice Godzilla, and then again in English. So you have the dubs, which honestly, for the most part, aren't very good. And then I hadn't watched them in a long, long time. Friend Corey said I had to watch them. I had to watch them in Japanese, so we watched all of them. I can't remember how many movies there were. There were a ton over the years. Also watched the American ones, the more recent ones. Also watched Monarch, the show that's on right now. I think with Kurt Russell, which I'm a huge Kurt Russell fan. The show's not that bad in my opinion. And then Gamera, which is the like cheap knockoff of Godzilla by another studio in Japan. So after I finished all the Godzilla movies, watched the Gamera movies, a little harder to find. Some of the Godzilla ones are hard to find, but yeah. So watched those as well and added them to the list. I also watched a Godzilla anime show kind of recently, and then a Gamera animated show that had some of the similar kaiju in here, so that might factor in. But in terms of how I'm going to rate them, so it's been a while since I've seen some of the movies, a lot of the movies, enough to where I've kind of forgotten like who's in what movie or what specific plot points there were. But I still remember the kaiju and stuff, so it might actually help because I'll have a fresh perspective without like a recency bias on any of them. And then all I did for categories was I have kind of the S tier down. So you've got your supreme best of the best. You've got the awesome ones. You've got barely not awesome for B tier. C is cool enough, and D is for dumb. So any that I think are like dumb. And I was thinking about how I'd rate them. What would matter? It's not really much more than what I want to see them in a movie. Um, there, I could go into like, oh, they look cool. That's part of it. The their powers, or I'm not. What I'm not going to do is really like knock them down for their movie not being good, because a lot of these movies have, well, most of them, I think all of them probably have a human element to them, and that can play a factor because it's a big part of the movie. Some of them are real dumb in that regard, but some of them are fun, even though they're dumb. And then others actually are good. So shouldn't factor in too much. It might as I talk through it, and some of these pop back into my head. And then I've also got like a reference list over here I might have to pull up on some of the names because there's a few that are some I don't remember. And granted, I included some that are like hardly in a movie. They're like in an American one and they're just walking around for 5 seconds. So, but I remember them. So I had them in here. Okay. I think they're in alphabetical order here. Pretty sure we've got them all. We've got about like 65 or so. Probably, well, 66, I guess, maybe if we have one extra line. So Anguirus. Anguirus is the first one here. So he's kind of like an ankylosaurus looking dude. I feel like he was the first like other kaiju besides Godzilla in a Godzilla film. So the original Godzilla, he was mean. It was black and white. It's a very classic movie, and it is a very good movie. Like some folks would probably just think, based on Godzilla today, that Godzilla is dumb, and they're like, "Oh, they're always campy and stupid and whatever." And no, it was actually a very serious movie, shot in the '50s, so it's like crazy good for back then. So yeah, Godzilla is great in that original one. But then they followed it up, and I believe maybe in Godzilla Raids Again, uh, Anguirus shows up, makes a few appearances here and there. One of the classic ones that I can't remember which one it was. He and Godzilla actually talked to each other in one of the edits, literally with voices, which never happens again any other Godzilla film. So got to have those kind of things in the lore. But I like Anguirus. Anguirus is a fun character. He's not like one of my favorites. I don't know that he shows up enough where I'm like, oh, we gotta watch him all the time. But I'll have him in the barely not awesome for now. As with most of my tier list, I'll rank them at the end, but I'll also probably figure out I've got some too high or too low once I calibrate with the other ones. All right. Okay, we have Baragon coming up next. So Baragon is also Godzilla. His picture cut off a little here. Kind of reminds me of like a dog, like a big monster dog. He's a little smaller than some of the other ones, but he's a fun character. I cannot remember, aside from him like fighting Godzilla in their movie, what other ones he showed up in, because he did show up in a couple of others, I think. Probably most of these showed up in like Final Wars, which is where they brought back all the kaiju to fight in like a big battle royale. It's pretty fun. Baragon I like, and I probably have him close to Anguirus. They're kind of in the barely not awesome category for me. They're fun side characters to have. I'd like to have them, in a film as a side character. I wouldn't necessarily focus on them too much. Okay, now we have our first Gamera kaiju. Now, these kaiju Gamera movies have a lower budget than most Godzilla films, and even some of the Godzilla films, depending on the era and stuff, were probably a little light on budget. But sometimes the look and everything isn't quite there. But Barugon or Barugon, I don't know how you pronounce some of these the proper way, is I think the first villain kaiju. So the first Gamera movies like Godzilla, where Gamera is really the antagonist, seemingly, that they got to stop. And then you got this guy showing up in the second one. I feel like he's the second one, and I feel like he freezes or almost like kills Gamera. So kind of cool. I feel like he shoots a rainbow out somehow. So just quirky and weird. I'll have him as cool enough. He's not my favorite. I will say I watched the Gamera anime, which is one of the weirdest animes I've ever seen. And why I say that is the people characters are super like kiddie feeling, like you're watching a kid's movie. Their style and stuff is just really kind of playful looking and innocent. And the monsters in this are terrifying. They're like this different animation style and brutal looking. And they bring, I think, all of them back. This is the one that I couldn't remember exactly what his plot was. Well, he and Jiger, who comes down. So I can't remember if they were like in it or in it a whole lot, but that was a fun show to like see a good representation of some of these kaiju from Gamera. Okay, Batra. Batra is like evil Mothra, like the evil twin Mothra. Cool looking. I liked Batra. The movie, I don't remember what movie it was in. He was in. Because they all kind of run together for me in that era. But anyway, I thought he looked cool. I thought he was probably not in the best movie because I don't remember liking the movie all that much that he was in. But I think he's cool. I would like to see Batra in a movie, like a good version of Batra, which this version was fine, I thought. Just the movie wasn't great. Okay, now we've got okay, this is like, I think, Behemoth. from American Godzilla movies, the recent ones, the MonsterVerse, whatever they call them. Just a giant woolly mammoth, giant tusks. Looks kind of cool. Doesn't do anything. Doesn't have a plot point. Um, Not sure what it would do. It doesn't look like it moves a whole lot or does a whole lot. I'm going to keep it in the cool enough category for now. The style and design looks okay. Again, I don't like those movies that much, so I'm not going to hold it against it like the plot's bad or the whatever writing's bad. But yeah, have them down there for now, but we'll see where we go. Okay, Biolante. Biolante is a weird kaiju in an era of weird kaiju for Godzilla. So it hardly moves like walks. I don't think it walks. I think it's like sitting there, and it's like a plant that fused with a girl or blood and became this monster. And it's kind of a sad movie in a way, if I remember. Like it's like freeing her by killing this thing. It's like freeing her spirit or something. I when I initially ranked these, so I kind of ranked as I went and watched these movies, and I checked them out. I had Biolante fairly low compared to like my memories of Biolante. So some of this, and I should have said this early on, is like how memorable are these characters? Because some of them I may not have liked a lot, but they stick in my mind. And like the movie, I remember the movie. I remember the beginning and some of the scarier feels that they had in that era of Godzilla. And I liked Biolante, so I'm going to put Biolante her in awesome. Okay, this is where I'm going to need a reference check on name because I think it's Dagora, but yeah, okay, Dagora. Um, Mothra movies. There were three Mothra movies in like the 90s, lower budget, kiddie movies more so. They're not great, not even super fun to watch necessarily. I didn't necessarily think the kaiju though were that bad. The villains and things, I thought they were cool enough looking. They're a little, uh, at least this one's a little different. So Dagger is probably in my uh, cool enough section. Maybe could get up to barely not awesome. It might have a little penalty for the movie that it's in my head, but the next one is the same scenario. So we have Des Ghidorah. This one I remember because I was like, oh gosh, it's Ghidorah, King Ghidorah, and it's weird looking. How's Mothra going to deal with that? And it's not. It's similar looking Des Ghidorah. Now I don't know if they just like didn't have other costumes, and so like let's just use this thing that looks like we were going to use it and we didn't use it, so let's use it for this. Who knows? But it's kind of repetitive. That said, I still think it's a cool design. Like I don't mind it. I'm gonna put it in barely not awesome for now. It might move down for sure, but I'm gonna start it there. The three heads, so just something about it. Um, okay, we have Destroya. I like that movie. Was it great? No, but it's memorable. Like, and I don't know that I wouldn't say it's not great. I really liked some of these movies. If you haven't watched them, like in Japanese, and just appreciate them for what they are, you could probably think they're like a little stupid. But this one I remember because I want to say Destroya freaking killed Godzilla Jr., if I remember. And I think this was the one that was like, so in the original Godzilla, they killed Godzilla, legit killed him, which I can talk about here in a little bit, but using an oxygen destroyer technology. So like sucking the oxygen out of the air so it can't breathe. And I think they were trying to like replicate it to kill Godzilla again because Godzilla was like burning and gonna cause like a nuclear fallout. Um, and so it became somehow destroy it, and it ended up being this like massively difficult kaiju for Godzilla to fight. I'm gonna have Destroy up in the awesome category. Like the design, like how villainous he was and evil. All right, this is Ibera or Ibera, uh, giant lobster like monster. Had its own movie, I think. Very much remember a boat and a giant claw coming out of the water. Cool scene. Like those are cool director scenes. You just don't get those in movies anymore. But yeah, I really liked Ibra, and I would have certainly that up in the awesome category. Want to say, yeah, it was definitely in Final Wars because I remember him coming up off out and by this like port factory or something, and maybe that's that picture for all I know. I can't remember, but yeah, cool character. Would like to see in a movie for sure. All right, Fairy. Fairy is a miniature Mothra. She is from the Mothra movies. She is actually like a tiny Mothra, not just small. She's tiny, where like the little twins can ride around on her. I think the twins ride on her. Fairy, I thought was kind of dumb. It's a kid movie, you know, you just accept it. But lot of Mothras, a lot of different types of Mothras. I don't even know that I have them all in here. And I should say too, like I'm not including mostly, I don't think, other versions of a kaiju. Like Godzilla has different eras and different types where you're like, oh, it's Shin Godzilla, it's the original Godzilla. I'm just saying Godzilla and lumping it all in together. But there might be a Mothra or two that they get reincarnated over time and all that. Who is this? Oh, it's out of order. Okay, so it's the female, probably Muto from Godzilla, like 2014 or something around there. So there was the female Muto and the male, and I cannot remember which one was which. I want to say the female was the bigger one, maybe that flew, maybe the smaller one flew. Either way, they're kind of in the same bucket to me. They're not the most memorable. Uh, Kaiju, I didn't mind the movie. I thought the movie was okay. I enjoyed it. It was kind of the atmosphere of it and stuff was pretty decent. It was a little boring. I mean, they killed Bryan Cranston, and that was a problem. Like right away, he should have just been in the movie. Then the other lead guy, I'm like, I just don't care. So that's where sometimes the human element takes away from the movies. But I did like when Godzilla opened up the mouth. I don't know if it was this one or the male, but just blew him off, blew their head off with his breath. But I'll have them probably around the dumb area. They just were generic. I didn't think they had a look or any animal or anything you'd associate them with or a certain kind of monster. So anyway, Frankenstein. You're like Frankenstein. Frankenstein's not a kaiju. Frankenstein is a kaiju. Frankenstein is in the Godzilla universe, and the thing I remember most about Frankenstein, he grows, like starts out smaller, and then like I remember I think his hand getting cut off and crawling around or something. But he fights. He's like a more human type fighter and stuff. I didn't. It kind of seems out of place to me, like this giant human fighting. But it's fine. We'll talk about some of the others. I'll have Frankenstein is cool enough. Um, yeah, cool enough. I don't know that I necessarily like want to see this Frankenstein in a movie. All right. Hard to see without. Oh, Gabra. It's got to be Gabra because Gabra is G. Uh, so Gabra is in one of the worst Godzilla movies. I think. All the names run together. I think is it All Monsters Attack? Maybe with Manila and Calling Monster Island. Monster Island. Uh, it's the reason it stinks is not because just the movie is not good. It's because it's like all flashbacks to other Godzilla movies. It's like a kid imagining what his world would be if he was around these kaiju, and he's just daydreaming about flashbacks, which are just scenes from other movies. So it's like a money grab kind of a film. But anyway, I think Gabra represents like a bully in his life or something, and it actually felt like a was it a poor lesson? Like the kid at the end just became a bully and treated an adult like crap, and that was it. I don't remember, but it feels like that was it. And I was like, weird. But Gabra is kind of just dumb. There's a soft spot in my heart for some of these where I'm like, oh, not really. I mean, you don't hate Gabra, so we'll see. Um, maybe there was a missing tier of like he's pretty dumb, but that's okay. All right. Okay, so we go back to the Frankenstein universe. We've got a couple of twins. This is what is it, Gara or Gyra? I think Sanda was the other one. So Gyra is the evil twin of the two. They both, I think, start along the same path, and then this one stays bad. The other one kind of turns good, if I recall. I didn't hate them. I thought that was kind of a cool twist. You've got these two Frankenstein twins, fighting. It's fairly memorable. If they were in a movie together, I wouldn't mind that. So I'll have them in the cool enough category as now, or at least that one. Once we get to Sanda, we'll see. And maybe Sanda's already down here. Let me see if I can find him. So yeah, there's Sanda. We'll just bring him up too, so we don't lose him. Okay. All right. This is Gamera. So most people don't know Gamera. Gamera, again, was from the other studio. He's not in Godzilla. I thought it was going to be just the dumbest thing in the world. Like, I started watching these movies, and the first one is okay. It's hard to explain. It's black and white. He is a turtle that can fly, and he has like a blue kind of fire that comes out of him, and he spins when he flies, or he can fly with, I think, straight with it, but he spins and flies around. And so people are like, oh, flying saucer or whatever, and they think it's this evil thing, and he destroys a dam and does all this standard kaiju stuff. But there's one scene that's pretty important in that movie, which is that there's a kid who's like on a lighthouse or something, and Gamera catches him and puts him down. So he saves the kid, which is important because that is Gamera's theme. Gamera is a protector of kids. He does this in a lot of his early movies, especially where they're a little more lighthearted and have kids as kind of the protagonist. So sometimes the kids can get a little annoying, but it's just fun. I mean, it's different. And then, so another thing about Gamera is he always seemed to just take a beating. Like early on, I'm like, man, this guy's getting his butt kicked. I mean, he's a good fighter, but he'd get his butt kicked, bleed, and do. And I'm like, man, this guy's pretty hardcore. So then there was a series of movies in like the '90s that are pretty well received. Like it was a reboot of Gamera. They're darker, they're more adult. There's some really cool scenes and shots. I think in those movies they're pretty dark and pretty brutal. At one point he like stabs his own hand, I think, to like get out of a situation. And what was that one? Was it Iris maybe, or Return to Legion? I can't remember. No, I think it was Iris. So yeah, Gamera's hardcore. That said, the last Gamera movie, what is a Guardian of the Universe, is my favorite, where he is it's like in the early 2000s or so. It's a little more kiddie again, but the dude's hardcore. He's saving kids and stuff, but the kids rally around and help save him. It's just a very good movie, in my opinion. Gamera is one of my favorites, so I'm going to throw Gamera up in the Supreme, which was shocking because I thought he'd be stupid and dumb, but I actually like Gamera a lot. All right. Okay, after Gamera, we've got Garu Garu. Garu Garu is similar to Fairy, kind of like the evil fairy. Garu Garu is a small dragon where the evil witch or whatever she was in Mothra rides on. He just is kind of the henchman, kaiju to help support. I thought Garu Garu was kind of dumb too. Just those small kaiju that are riding along. It doesn't mean I hate these kaiju at all. Like, I still, if you threw them in a movie and we're like, I'd rather see them all. It's like, throw them all in. It's like Final Wars. Just do it. But yeah, these might be on the dumber scale. Okay, couple iterations of this guy, and I just included. I think this is from the Godzilla versus Gigan movie, but Gigan or Gigan, how you want to pronounce it. Maybe one of the most unique looking kaiju. Has no hands. Has just these giant, claw looking things for hands. Has a saw for his chest, literally spins, cuts through things. One of the more vicious type kaiju in terms of like being able to cut up Godzilla and or anybody else. Has the one eye deal. I think he's an alien, so coming from outer space. I believe he fights with Megalon against Godzilla in one of the movies. Weird looking dude. I'd have him in my barely not awesome category. He's not like my favorite. I know some people probably love him, but yeah, I thought he was cool. He's not up there. Okay, so we're at the G. So yeah, it's Godzilla Jr. is probably the name. Um, Little Godzilla, Godzilla Jr. I think he had a few names, but this was, think I said it, but Destroya was the movie I remember him in, but I think he was in all of those movies. So there was like Godzilla versus Mecha Godzilla, Space Godzilla. Feels like he was in those and grew up by the time he got to Destroya. Uh, and he dies. He dies. I think he gets a building dropped on him. But I mean, he fought valiantly, and Godzilla tried to save him. And ultimately, his death is what got Godzilla pissed off enough to take it out, destroy it. So it was pretty cool. Like the end of that movie's really cool, I think. So yeah, Godzilla Jr. is. We'll get to Manila a little bit, but he is a replacement for Manila. My understanding is, I read this at some point, the director wanted Manila to come back, but they're like, no, he sucked. Gotta come with something else. So they did Godzilla Jr. Instead. And I don't know that he's actually Godzilla's son. He might just be another Godzilla and like an adopted kid he's taken care of. I can't remember where he comes from, but yeah, Godzilla Jr. was cool enough. I don't know that I'd have him much higher. I don't know that he did a lot more than the sacrifice, but I appreciate that sacrifice. All right, here he is, Godzilla. I won't, waste any time on where putting him. He's in Supreme for sure. But so many different eras of him and fun to watch in different eras, and people will probably have preferences of each. I'm not sure there's a character. I was trying to think of this where they have gone through so many like character transformations, and this guy doesn't even talk, but his personality and stuff and like motivations across these movies. I'm like, I don't know that any like given character has changed. Like James Bond would be the closest, but it's really just that the actors acted a little different with him. But yeah, so original Godzilla was brutal. He was just a mean dude destroying Tokyo. It was a representation of nuclear war. It's a very serious movie. You got to remember, like, came out in the 50s, so this like 10 years after the bombs dropped. So very fresh in people's mind. I mean, we're what 20 some years from almost 25 years from September 11th, and people remember that day a lot. So this would have been 10 years after their day, and the war and all that. But so original Godzilla was brutal, and original Godzilla died. Like, spoiler alert, but it's been out since the 50s. He died, and I didn't know that. So I watched the first one thinking like, okay, he's gonna, get to the end. It's gonna look like he's kind of dead, and he does this thing where you're like, oh, he's still alive. No, he was like a skull after it, and there was a very brave sacrifice by one of the guys to make sure that it happened. But you felt good about it because it was like they had saved Japan. Like, you wanted Godzilla to die. He wasn't like who we know now. So all well and good, except the fact that I think it did really well and made a lot of money. So like, all right, we got to make more of these things. So Godzilla raids again, and then Godzilla versus King Kong, and all these things started. And every movie was like a Godzilla versus a lot of these people we're talking about here. Some of them a little more serious than others. Like I said, all of them have a human story to some extent. Um, Even the campy ones, though, I enjoy. There are some scenes you're like, what are they doing? Where he's flying backwards or using his breath or jumping around dancing on a freaking planet because he just beat whoever it was, probably King Ghidorah, you know, with the zillions out somewhere and he just starts doing his dance. It's like, well, it's kind of fun, you know? It's like Gamera. There was a Gamera movie where he like caught onto a bar and spun around like 30 times and came back and hit something. It's like, okay. I appreciate that now because you'd forget it if it wasn't, you know, didn't have those kind of moments. And it's fine for those movies to have a little bit of their own flair. But Godzilla went through a more serious phase in the 80s where it's like the ones I've been talking about with Godzilla Jr., where it was more serious, hardcore, dark kind of deal, a little like those later Gamera movies. Um, then you had Final Wars and a couple like middle ground efforts, but then they had Shin Godzilla, which is a very good and weird movie. Weird meaning Godzilla is very weird in that movie. Like evolves from this small thing into this big thing, and there's a lot of good commentary about politics and just red tape and stupidity. And in Japan, it was kind of a commentary on their government and things at the time. Um, and then we get American Godzilla, which some people, a lot of people today would be, that's who they recognize. And it's like, oh, Godzilla 2014 and Times Kong and all that stuff. But then they came out with Godzilla Minus One. Might be the best one. Like I have recommended that movie to a lot of people who don't watch Godzilla movies because it's a very good human movie and he is not good in that movie. You want him to be defeated, which is saying a lot when you have all these other movies saying how fun and good and Godzilla saves us and is heroic. Well, in this movie, you're just like, that dude looks mean. The black and white version's awesome. The color version's awesome. Music's awesome. The human characters are great. So they've really brought him back. Now we'll see if they screwed up by making it kind of dumb again after the first one, but who knows? So a lot of time on Godzilla, but he deserves it because he is great. All right, Gorosaurus. Gorosaurus is just like a dinosaur looking dude. I think he was in Godzilla versus King Kong. I remember him just walking around on like the island. Um, but something about him, I kind of like him. He seems like a good guy. Um, he was just kind of a neat little character. I'll have him in the barely not awesome category. Just looking at him and be like, oh, he's kind of lame. I don't know. There was something about Gorosaurus and just dinos and his dino look that I did like. All right, we are back to a Gamera kaiju, and this is Giran. So Giran is a giant knife head. They actually made knife head in Pacific Rim to look a little like Giran. Uh, Giran is brutal. Giran is brutal. Giran is in God or Gamera versus Giran, and there's a scene of him like chopping up a Gauss, one of the other kaiju, like legit using his knife head and doing it. He shoots off these like ninja stars, strangely, out of his head, and they go into Gamera, like they're like piercing him, and he's bleeding. So he's pretty brutal. And then in the anime that I watch, dude just comes out of nowhere, and they're like way more agile in that show, and he like jumps up and just starts like slicing buildings in half and everything. So pretty cool. I like Giran. He's a weird looking dude, but if I'm gonna put another Gamera kaiju up and awesome, Giran might be it. We'll see. But there could be another. This is Gauss. Gauss is a Gamera kaiju from Gamera versus Gauss. He's used a few different ways later on. Like there becomes a time where there's many of them, just because I guess he was popular or whatever. But first one, I distinctly remember he's got like a laser that just slices through planes or whatever is coming to get him. He can fly. But yeah, he's again another hardcore dude. Like his ability to like destroy stuff is really cool. Um, I liked even that movie. I'm not going to give the movie too much credit, but I did like that movie, the old one, with some of the scenes in there and the humans and like guy trying to steal some stuff that they're around Gauss. It's pretty cool. So yeah, I like him a lot too. I'm gonna have him in the awesome category. There are two that if you like had a budget, had a good movie, um, you put together. Um, and I should say this. I was going to just save it for the end, but I mean, with Gamera and Godzilla. So, as a Daisei Studios, they went under many years ago, I believe. So you haven't had a Gamera movie in a long time. They sold the rights. I think I don't know if Toho owns it or who owns it, but there might be some like contractual stuff they can't do. But there is no Godzilla versus Gamera movie, which is like the most cool common sense movie to make. Like have bad Godzilla, have good Gamera, and let it go because they're both awesome characters. And Gamera would hold a movie if they did it well. Like his personality comes out in the movies. He's got a great screech. I didn't say that. Godzilla's obviously got his like iconic roar. Gamera's got a really iconic screech himself, I think. Um, cool theme, all of his own stuff that you could just layer in with Godzilla. So same thing. If you're going to do that, these are a couple of the kaiju that I would say, oh, you could rope them in with the Godzilla franchise and be fine. They're fun. Okay, controversial one here. Hedorah or Hedorah, Hedorah. It's a smog monster, giant pollution monster. Transforms, can like turn into like a flying thing, flies around. This is the one where Godzilla uses his breath to fly backwards. But Hedorah was a tough challenge. He'd like get on you literally and like dissolve your skin and stuff because he was pollution. Um, the movie is so weird, so weird. Like I don't encourage anyone to take drugs, but if you take drugs, watch that movie while you're on it because it is just bizarre. Tell me if it makes more sense. That said, I like him. I like the concept. I think in hindsight, I'm like, I remember him a lot. And I remember that movie a lot, even if it wasn't like one of the best ones. For some reason, he's unique enough where I'm like, yeah, that's a pretty cool take. I'm going to start him in the barely not awesome category. We'll see where he goes. It'll be pretty good once I'm able to rank these because I'll be able to tell you which one I like more once I see them together. All right, this is Ice. Is it Isis? I can't remember. Iris. So Iris or Iris, I think she says Iris in Japanese, is a weird one. So this was, yeah, this is where the girl like finds an egg or something that's Gamera, but she finds an egg. It's like this alien looking thing. She ends up like befriending it. It like absorbs her and becomes this monster and like grows and grows and grows. And by the end of the movie, you're like, holy crap, this thing's mean and awful. And that's where Gamera has to fight her. And it's a pretty brutal fight. So he's got to like essentially lose his hand to take her out. But he's got a cool fireball, like if you haven't seen Gamera. So Godzilla's got his big atomic breath. Gamera's got the fireball that comes out. Pretty cool. And I think he used that to destroy her. I don't know. I'd be interested to see another take on this one because it suffered a bit in the movie. It was like the time in the 90s or so when they were trying to like make special effects more digital. And it was like, oh, look at this scene where you see them float. And it's like out of place and just kind of takes you out of the movie a little bit. So a different imagining of this, I think, would help. I'm trying to remember. I think she might have been in the Gamera anime and was better. Like, so it's not like something that's terrible, terrible. I'll have it in the cool enough, but it does suffer from the special effects. Jet Jaguar, kind of a take on Ultraman. I didn't watch Ultraman. You could probably put another 5,000 kaiju in here if you did watch them. Was it? Man, I was trying to think who he fought with. He fought with Godzilla against somebody. Megalon, maybe. Feel like that's wrong though. Maybe Gigan. Um, Jet Jaguar's dumb. I tried to like him. It's like a, he does this little anime Japanese thing and dance or whatever, and I don't know, just never was a fan. So Jet Jaguar, and I think he's in like a new show, like a new Godzilla show. So obviously somebody has some affinity for him. But yeah, it was never one I really liked in those. All right, Jiger. Jiger is Gamera, and Jiger isn't very memorable for me compared to some of the others. Uh, I don't even remember that movie all that much. So I'm gonna have him. I don't think he's. It's like close. I'll start those there. But yeah, of all of the like Gamera villains or Gamera Kaiju, he's the one where I'm like, yeah, I don't really remember him that much. And it could come to my mind where it's like, oh yeah, I remember that thing he did where he, shot Gamera with something. I feel like something comes out of his horn or whatever. Okay, Kamacuras. So I think there's multiple Kamacuras. Giant praying mantis. Manila might have fought one. I know we have another one coming up that he definitely did. But yeah, I think he fought one. I was just trying to run through that scene in my head. So Kamacuras is kind of cool. I like the look. I like the praying mantis. It's creepy looking, the giant bug eyes and everything. I don't know that I'd call him awesome, but he's probably in my barely not awesome category. All right, King Caesar. King Caesar is like a Chinese, Japanese, whatever relic. Like they found a relic, found this thing, and they have to like bring him up. And he's kind of a good guy in the movie. So he's not like a mean kaiju. Now I think he comes back in Final Wars and is one that like the aliens bring to fight him. But uh, I like the look. He's like a dog kind of god-like creature. So King Caesar's in my awesome. I actually have a King Caesar shirt because I think he looks pretty cool and his face looks mean. His ears will perk up. So I like King Caesar. All right, King Kong. King Kong's a tough one for me. King Kong's been a lot of different movies, a lot of different iterations, and I'm not sure which one I really like the best. The originals are okay. The one King Kong versus Godzilla is not my favorite Kong. Then you have the new Kong with Godzilla, and that's probably not my favorite, at least in the movies. You had the one with Peter Jackson. Um, Kong Skull Island might have been my favorite iteration. I know that's MonsterVerse too, but like I feel like in the MonsterVerse he changes size. I don't know that for sure. Uh, but I at least had some enjoyment of seeing him in that movie. Kong is awesome. I don't know that I have him as supreme. Most people would say, of course, he's supreme. He's King Kong. He's legendary. But I don't get as excited about a King Kong movie as I do Gamera or Godzilla. I'm just like, okay, King Kong versus what? Um, Fine. But he is enjoyable. I do like him. It's just not like the same draw, box office draw for me. Uh, all right, King Ghidorah. King Ghidorah is classic. Don't remember if it was like the fourth or so movie where he shows up. Oftentimes an alien. Uh, Weirdly done in the anime that I watched, like very weirdly done, like a giant serpent sky god kind of thing. I don't know. But super cool. I mean, the design is great. Whoever came up with that, you got the three heads, the wings that are they're huge, was pretty darn cool looking. I thought in the got new American Godzilla movies, like for as dumb as the people were in that, and the parts, like some of the visuals were pretty cool. And that King Ghidorah was one of them. I'll tell you what, I kind of want to do this. I want to add a row below. and say these. I'm going to do a little of what I usually do. So these are kind of like, uh, well, we already got 18. I'll just do what I did one before. I'm going to call these the goats. Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's do that. And then these are going to be like the absolutely awesome. Something like that. So King Ghidorah is absolutely awesome. He's not the greatest of all time. So is King Kong. To me, they're absolutely awesome, but they're not like the top. So we're gonna have that tier. Okie dokie. So that gets us through the Kamanga and make sure I'm not missing any here. Yeah. Okay. So Kamanga is a giant spider. Definitely fought Manila. At least I think he did. I'm almost sure he did. But I remember him shooting the webs and like wrapping people up. He can shoot Godzilla. Kumanga is a really cool kaiju that I'd like to see in movies for sure. I'd have Kumanga in my awesome category. Um, I think they replaced him a little bit, like in the American ones. They had another spider we'll talk about down there. That's like, why wouldn't you just have used Kumanga? Is there like rights issues or something? All right. Anyway, Legion. Legion is from Gamera. Gamera versus Legion. Gamera fights a bunch of these little things, and so Legion is the combination of those things, and they become this giant monster. They're fighting around like power lines and power plant. I remember that. This movie was like probably the scariest of them in terms of having scenes where they like try to jump scare you and do stuff. It's pretty dark. Wasn't my favorite of them though. Like I said, I like the Guardian of the Universe version of Gamera, but it was still fun and cool. I'll have him in the cool enough. Legion wasn't my favorite design or anything like that either. I wouldn't care to see him in movies. All right, Manda. Manda's a giant sea serpent. Was actually in a different universe, not a different universe, different movie first. And boy, I cannot remember the name of that movie with the submarine that was like super cool. Hopefully, it pops into my head. But Manda was there. Manda comes back and is in Godzilla movies. Cool sea serpent looking dude. I like him. I wish he was in more. Again, another character I think they replaced. Like, oh, we're gonna have a generic sea serpent in the American Godzilla. It's like, no, just freaking use Manda. Manda's pretty cool. I'll have Manda. Yeah, some of these might move around. So we're going to have Manda in the barely not awesome category for now. Feels like it started with an A, that movie. I keep thinking like the Argonauts, but that's not it. Okay, here's an iteration thing where like I'm sure I'm screwing some stuff up here, but we had King Ghidorah. This is Mecha King Ghidorah. And it's a little weird because Mecha King Ghidorah is actually King Ghidorah, but he had like one of his heads cut off. So they made that one metal, and it's like half human controlled, half, or 1/3 human controlled, 2/3 Ghidorah controlled, something like that. And I want to say this is the good version of King Ghidorah. There's like one movie where you would you're like, oh, Godzilla's gonna be good and King Ghidorah is bad, and oh, Godzilla's bad guy, and then they have to get King Ghidorah to help fight Godzilla. And I think that might have been this one, but I could be wrong. Mecha King Ghidorah is cool enough. I'd have him in the barely not awesome category. I mean, it's just a little bit of repetitiveness, so I'm not gonna like throw him way up there, but I think it's still cool and a cool concept. Mecha Godzilla. Mecha Godzilla is pretty famous in a lot of stuff. They love the giant robot version fighting thing. The American version recently, they had the like guy that could telepathically control it, and then it got in control and kicked him out and became its own thing. And Godzilla and King Kong had some sort of freaking hammer or something. I don't know. It's also stupid. But anyway, Mecha Godzilla before that's pretty cool. the Mechagodzilla concept of them like trying to build something to fight off this kaiju, they know is coming, this weapon that can fight it. The times that they depict it, where they've got these human pilots and stuff, is fun because you get a sense of like, oh, this is they're literally like dog fighting, him. And then I think it does take over in like Mechagodzilla 2, and maybe I'm wrong, but it feels like he kind of became the bad version of Mechagodzilla. Anyway, I like both. I like the fact that they have that variance. Mechagodzilla I'd have is awesome. Mecha Kong, on the other hand, was in like one movie. I want to say he's dumb. I don't even remember why he was developed or like what entity did it. If it was a government, if it was a group, I don't know. And it's just one time, and it's like, okay, we've already done this. Or I hope Mechagodzilla was first. I think he was, but yeah, just not my favorite. Could they do it better? That's one question I'd have. Like, oh, what if they, let's take the American version. If they had the concept of we need to stop Godzilla, and we've made Mechagodzilla, and now King Kong has turned against us and done something to accidentally blah blah blah. Now we're gonna make a giant ape. Fine, that might work, but otherwise, kind of dumb. All right, we have Megaguirus, I believe. Yeah, Megaguirus. Man, this was one of those movies I don't remember much, but I liked him. Like, must have not been a good movie, or not my favorite, but I did like him, and so um, I'll have him in the barely not awesome category for now. I'm just throwing those in there, but I don't remember enough about him to like put him much higher. Okay, this dude's memorable. Megalon, a little like Gigan, giant something hands, and then antenna, weird looking dude. Again, I don't know if this was who fought Jet Jaguar. I'll have to look that up afterwards. But Megalon, I didn't like his design. He's kind of like an alien dude, and he's fine. I don't hate him though. Like, I wouldn't mind another version of him, another iteration of him in there. So I'm gonna have him kind of by Gigan for now to remember the association I have with the two. Okay, this is Meganulon from Rodan. Rodan had his own movie to start, and it was actually two of them. I don't know if it was male and female, but tragic movie, sad movie, watching them die at the end. But Meganulon was like a giant. It kind of looks like Kamacuras a little bit, but they were these giant bugs that went in people's houses and stuff and freaked them out. So nothing special, but I thought they were cool enough. I was like, it's a nice little ad to have those kind of monsters. All right, this is Methuselah from American Godzilla Monsterverse. Doesn't do anything. Giant rock monster. They kind of just make them look cool and don't do anything with them. This one looked cool enough, but I don't think I'd really care. We'll see. I'm going to throw it next to the behemoth and figure out what to do with those. Manila. It's like Godzilla's son in All Monsters Attack. He's dumb, he's annoying, yet I have a soft spot for him for some reason. There's the cool part where Godzilla is trying to teach him how to shoot his atomic breath, and he shoots out puffs of smoke. Great scene. There's something I like about him dealing with Manila, Godzilla dealing with Manila, and like the father being frustrated by the son kind of problem, and the son being like annoying but loving deal. I don't know, something about it. That said, Manila's pretty dumb. Like it's enjoyable. It can be dumb and enjoyable, and I thought Manila was kind of dumb and enjoyable. All right, we have Mogera. Stands for mobilize something, Godzilla unit something something. kind of cut off here, but he's the robot, not Mechagodzilla, but a giant robot that's used to stop Godzilla. I think he was from another show first, another movie, and then they brought him over and changed his name to stand for something that was Godzilla related. So he was Mogera before, and then they made it an acronym. Uh, I didn't like Mogera that much. I thought it was kind of dumb. I'm just gonna be honest and put it down there. I don't mind the robot stuff usually, but yeah, I just didn't find that one to be too exciting. They might be able to do a better version or something with him. Maybe they didn't do the first time. Monster X. This one's tricky because I think this becomes King Ghidorah in like Final Wars. Uh, don't know much about him. He just looks cool. I mean, I'd have him as cool enough because I'm like, you could do something with that. But I think it just becomes King Ghidorah, so it's not anything super special. All right, now we get into some of these. This is like Mother Longlegs is maybe what they called it from American. The American one, they like have giant bamboo like legs and kill stuff. I just thought this one was kind of dumb. Uh, they can make anything kind of look cool on these shows, so that's fine. But is there anything really behind it? And that one, not really. All right. Man, I got to get these straight. We've got Mothra and Mothra Leo. I think this is Mothra Leo. Mothra Leo has more rainbow colors in the wings. Mothra Leo is in the Mothra movies. It is a boy version of Mothra, which is not the norm. And he fights, man, I can't remember which one he fought. Did he fight Desghidorah or Daggera? But either way, he was fine. I thought he was cool enough. I was like, okay, it's a decent take on Mothra. It wasn't like super dumb, but wasn't the best. Mothra. Mothra is one of my favorites. Mothra goes up in this absolutely awesome category. Wouldn't have it above Godzilla and Gamera, but Mothra has a ton of lore on her own. She is from her own movie. Has the twins that are kind of famous, the singing twins that get Mothra to come out. And Mothra very much has that same kind of sentiment a little bit as like Gamera of being a protector, and trying to do the right thing. The other part of Mothra is often a larva to start. So like you just see her crawling around as this giant larva, and then she turns into to Mothra, the butterfly looking version. But one of her best scenes was early on, and I don't remember the name of the movie. Was it just Godzilla versus King Ghidorah, something like that, where Godzilla had to fight King Ghidorah, but there was Rodan there, and Mothra, I believe, was there with Godzilla. And Rodan and Godzilla are just arguing. You can they're not literally talking, but you can see that they're pissed off at each other and like fighting. And Mothra just comes like, guys, stop. We need to just combine forces and kill that thing. And they're like, fine, So Mothra's usually the level-headed one, even though she doesn't talk. You get that sense. And Mothra can look really cool in movies. They did a pretty good job with her, I think, in the American ones to make her look pretty, pretty and intimidating at times, like come in with claws and stuff, or with her pincers. So yeah, love Mothra. Okay, back to the Mutos. I'm going to put the other Muto down here. This is the male. So the male is the smaller one with the flying, and then the female's the bigger one that doesn't fly. Got it. We have, what is this? Udako. I had to look this up because the next one is Ukondru. And I was like, well, wait a minute. The Ukondru is really giant condor, and this is giant octopus. So it means in Japanese, probably means giant, because Dako means octopus and Kondru means a condor. So giant octopus and giant condor is really what we get at here. Octopuses are cool. Octopi are cool. Never know which one's the right one. He was just in like one movie but I'd like to have a good giant octopus kaiju. I think it's barely not awesome. I love the way they move and they have the tentacles and stuff. It's like a kraken kind of deal. That I wish they would have brought that back or used it more or whatever. And I get it; it's probably hard to have like a human in like an octopus costume. But today, maybe more opportunity. Giant Condor, small scene. Really just came in and pissed Godzilla off before Godzilla had to jump off an island that was getting ready to blow up. Giant Condor was cool enough. I don't think it had a ton to do, but it's like, yeah, giant bird, always fun. All right, this is Orga. Orga's a tricky one because probably better than I remember. Um, the movie was good, but I just don't remember that much about it. And it was a powerful kaiju that Godzilla had a tough time with. And I want to say this was Godzilla 2000 uh, with a cool ending, like good movie. Um, but I just don't remember enough of it. I probably need to go back and watch that one. So yeah, I'm gonna have Orgo as barely not awesome. It just feels like it could be higher, and I can't place. I feel like it may have shifted what it looked like after a while, like evolved a little bit. But man, I'm struggling to remember how Orgo came to be. Rodan. Rodan is giant pterodactyl. Started again, own movie. Two of them both died. So the next Rodan you get is a new Rodan, right? And there's been times where like you've seen a Rodan egg. You've seen the Rodan egg have to get protected and that kind of stuff. Rodan was cool looking in the new American movies, very powerful. You see a lot of times the speed of flight and the air is a strong power that Rodan has. Rodan is up in my awesome category for now. Wasn't like at the tier of these to me, but I do like Rodan. Scar King from Godzilla times Kong, the new one. He's the evil slave driving Kong that lives in Middle Earth or wherever the hell Earth is underneath that they go to. I just don't. I don't know. I don't like. I don't like it. I just the movie probably influences that, but I'm sitting here thinking like, well, what if there was another one where he was Godzilla's foil? It's like or King Kong's foil. I'm like, not really. So I just don't like him that much. All right, this is Skilla or Scylla replacement for Kumanga. Giant spider, doesn't do much. American versions. Looks cool enough. I'll start out by having it in this section with these guys here. Shimo. Shimo is the giant ice monster. Shoots a lot of ice, really big and intimidating. Somehow almost freezes the world by shooting ice up into the atmosphere. Godzilla times Kong. Thought it looked dumb. Thought it was real dumb. Didn't like it. It's like, you can do better than this with special effects and ice monster stuff. And it ended up being like, oh, it was just enslaved and misunderstood, and now it's fine. It's like, okay, whatever. Giant water buffalo. I think it's Skur was the name they gave it. Yeah. Fine. I mean, just in this group for now. They're going to move down, so don't panic. And then skull crawlers from Kong Skull Island. There was a giant one. There were many small ones. They come and kill a lot of the people. I did not like those either. I'm going to have those as dumb. Thought you could have come up with something better to look cool. Space Godzilla. Space Godzilla is a product of some of Godzilla's DNA being in like space and combining with something to come back to Earth and be Space Godzilla. He's huge, intimidating, and has these like crystals and stuff. And I thought he looked awesome. As dumb as I made it sound, like I did like Space Godzilla. He was intimidating. I like the feel of those because you see I have Destroy and Biollante there. Like all those movies, I like how dark they were and all that. And a quick aside, just to give a lot of credit where credit's due. So Gamera and Gamera versus Giran, I think, um, where it starts, there's two kids that are like kidnapped from Earth by these aliens and taken to Mars or wherever, and Gamera follows them. Like they're like in this spaceship and they get taken away, and he finds them, follows them all the way there, and saves them, and manages to not only defeat the aliens but get the spaceship to be workable, not like using mechanics or stuff, but to get it workable to get them home. So credit to that. I always like when those kaiju go to space and take something out. Titanosaurus, very tall, giant lizard looking dude. Uh, wasn't my favorite. I'll have him in the cool enough section. He's decent, but just nothing like crazily good about him stands out to me. Uh, and then we have Varen. So Varen was another like standalone movie. Shows up in maybe just Final Wars. Could be others. Uh, Kind of a knockoff, like Godzilla, like a little more of a sea creature looking dude. Wasn't my favorite, but I have him in cool enough as well. Like he just was okay. All right, we have Virus. Virus is from pretty obviously Gamera, and Virus is like a combination of these guys on the spaceship, and they turn into this dude, and then Gamera beats him and starts playing him like drums. It's kind of weird. But Virus was not my favorite of the Gamera monsters. I'll keep him above some of these others because I'd rather see him. Gamera anime does a good job with him. He looks cooler, more like vicious and real. So yeah, I'll have him there to account for both versions. Why do I include a Star Destroyer on the Kaiju tier list? Because it's a freaking Kaiju monster in Gamera named Xanon. Might be the worst movie of all of them. Gamera, and I can't even remember the name of it. It's not Guardian of the Universe. It's like Gamera Super Monster or something like that. Much like that Godzilla movie I was talking about earlier, that was all like flashbacks that were just rehashes from other movies. That's what that movie was. It was like a kid and them looking, and it's like, oh, you're battling these guys. Well, you're literally just showing scenes from the other movie. There is a very redeeming scene in which the kid is able to play on an electric piano or an organ, the Gamera theme song, and sing it. So at least that's an admirable quality about that movie. But otherwise, not good, and nor was the Star Destroyer ripoff of an alien. I think the whole point was like he had brainwashed the other kaiju and was gonna kill Gamera with it. All right, we've been struggling with some Gamera guys here at the end. Now we get Zetus. Zetus was in Gamera Guardian of the Universe, and he was pretty cool. I liked him. I'm gonna have Zetus. Oof. We'll start him here in the Barely Not Awesome, but he might move. Fought well, put Gamera like down for the count, killed people, like 8 people. You could pretty well see what was going on. I mean, you knew what was happening. So yeah, more vicious and good than I thought. Like had a good bridge fight with Gamera. Yeah, it was good. All right, Zigra. So Zigra is Gamera. He is a shark-ish thing. The movie is not good. Alien, I think. Another one though. The character on like the anime is done better, and it's like, okay, this is at least digestible. I can kind of get through this. So I'm gonna have him kind of by Virus of cool enough. And this comes to our last one, and then we'll rank and be done with this. This is Zilla. Now, technically, this is Godzilla '98, so the Matthew Broderick movie. that a lot of people panned for good reason. It was not Godzilla, really. So the running joke was like, well, that wasn't Godzilla. So in the Final Wars, they actually got the rights to that version and said, well, we're going to say it wasn't Godzilla. It was another kaiju named Zilla. And then they had him fight in the Final Wars, which I always appreciate when movie makers and stuff have that sense of place. Because as dumb as the Godzilla '98 movie was, or whatever year it was, like I still remember it. It's like part of the movies that you remember from growing up and everything. So as bad as it might have been, it was still memorable, which I think is better than some of the movies that a lot of the movies that I see today. So anyway, Zilla is pretty dumb. We'll start it in dumb, but if they reworked it, it might not be that bad. Okay, let's rank these and get out of here. Um, I think I'm fine with Xanon being at the bottom. You just get to this kind of thing, and you're like, "What the hell are you thinking?" Um, okay, really got to think through some of these, and I'm trying to apply the like who would I rather see in film mindset more than anything, because it's the easiest way to separate these. So well, let's just throw Mogera up. Skull crawlers are very generic. Manila, yeah, you probably need to be down here, buddy. Jet Jaguar. I don't like Jet Jaguar. I'm gonna have him down here. I just don't. Um, yeah, okay. And then I'll have Mecha Kong above these. Like a good version of Mecha Kong, I can talk myself into at least above some of these. Scar King, I think, is better than this other crappy dude. Let's see. So, Fairy Shimo, Scar. Okay, that's the long legs. So let's figure that out. Mudos are fine. So I'd probably have. Like, I'd rather see Gabara than some of these guys in a different way. I'd rather see a good Mecha Kong over Mogera. Now, like in film, though, like Mogera is probably a little bit better. A little bit. So let's do that. Probably take Zilla down below those two. Let's just leave it there for now. All right, cool enough. Giant Condor just doesn't do a ton, so I'm going to move Giant Condor down. Mothra Leo, I'll move down. We've got other versions of Mothra. Okay, so these guys too, much like Giant Condor, are all down here. And then they look cool. Water Buffalo is dumb. I'm going to bring Water Buffalo down here and say I wouldn't give a crap to see a Water Buffalo over those guys. Giant Spider, fine. Behemoth, fine. Methuselah. I feel like I'd rather actually see Gabra. Maybe it's just a soft spot in my head. I'm gonna move him up here. Same with Mogera. Just they need to do more with those. That's the hard part. Okay. Good versions of these guys I actually like over Monster X and over Mega Nulon. I'd probably have him. Like, he's not even as intriguing as some of those, so I'll have him there. All right, Jiger. It's not my favorite, but I'd have him down by Gabra probably. Maybe a little above. And Mothra Leo. I'd probably have Gabra above Mothra Leo. And Jiger over. Yeah. Always tough with Iris. I didn't like him as much. Like Monster X is a good comp. I'll put her down there. Godzilla Jr. Fine. Like a good version of Godzilla Jr. would be good. Then we've got the twins here. I don't know that I'd have them above some of these others. I'd have them maybe down by Mogera. And I'd have maybe Sanda above. Yeah. Okay. All right. Baragon. That's fine. Descador. Okay, I'm going to move Legion. I'd rather see Baragon actually than Legion. Some of these guys. I'll have more Monster X. All right. Daggera, Frankenstein. Frankenstein again is it's kind of like and I'd actually want to see probably those two together over Frankenstein. I think. All right, then yeah, Varan, Titanosaurus. I'm not. Yeah, that's fine. I'd probably a good version of Varan. I'd rather see more than Titanosaurus. All right, to our barely not awesome category. Orgo can move up a little bit. Giant octopus can stay down there. Just trying to see if there's anybody I'd like move down for sure. Okay, yeah, Desghidorah would be about right there. Mecha King Ghidorah, Kamacuras. I'd probably rather see Kamacuras more than Gorosaurus, Megalon. There. Megalon's cool enough. I'd still probably have him there. And then, okay, Gigan. Baragon, not to be confused with Barugon, Baragon before. Manda I like. I'm going to just slip Manda above. Ghidorah is just so unique and so cool looking. I mean, really dumb looking, but cool looking. Oh, man. It's a tricky one. Let's see. And then let's see a little higher. We've got Anguirus. I'm thinking Mega Gearus needs to move down a little bit. Probably below Kamacuras. That's fine. Okay, so Manda. And I can stomach probably moving them down a little bit. Let's see. This is Zetus. I'd move below Kamacuras as well. And then Gigan. Probably have above Baragon, Manda, Ghidorah, Anguirus. So I'm going to move Anguirus down a little bit. Probably right here. Okay. I don't feel all that bad about that. Okay, awesome category. Okay, Batra needs to move down. Still cool looking. Like Batra a lot. I'm going to move Destroya up. Who would I rather see? Okay, like fortunately, I'm gonna move Rodan down. He might move back up, but let's see. So Kumanga is okay to be a little below Rodan. Ivira isn't in it enough that I can like justify being a little higher. Space Godzilla. I'd probably have a beer above Space Godzilla. And then Mecha, King Caesar, Gauss, Giran. So Biolante, I'd have maybe just below Mecha Godzilla. King Caesar right below Mecha Godzilla. Gauss, Giran, Destroya. Yeah. Okay. All right. Mothra, Kong, Ghidorah. I've got Mothra above both. I'd probably prefer to see Kong over Ghidorah. Ghidorah is really cool, but it could not like carry a movie or carry stuff as much as Kong can. So I like Kong for that. I do like Kong. I know probably the stuff I said earlier was like, oh, he doesn't like him. It's like, no, I do. I just don't like him as much as these guys. Okay, then we have Godzilla and Gamera um, up here. So the obvious answer is Godzilla. Been around forever, done everything, killed, good, bad, and ugly throughout the years. Iconic screech, iconic music theme. It's got the you know spine that lights up and the tail and everything. So super awesome. Uh, so obvious choice. The only problem is I'm gonna have Gamera above him, which sounds crazy. I know, and it's not like a hot take. I do like Gamera more than I like Godzilla. Barely. They're both absolutely awesome. Uh, but Gamera, his personality really comes out in movies to me. And again, I'm usually the guy that roots for the protagonist, like good. He's good hearted. He'll destroy buildings. I mean, he's freaking taken out like cities. But yeah, he's like the Rocky Balboa of Kaiju to me. Like doesn't give up, fights, gets his ass kicked, comes back, flies around, will die for you. That's why I like Gamera the most. And I know most people think that's crazy, but yeah, I love them both. So they're both 10 out of 10 for sure. So yeah, there's the Kaiju list for now. I'm sure if I watch movies again or if new ones come out that I'll rethink it. But yeah, that's where we are at today. We will stop there.